Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
I need to call the meeting to order at 5:31. And let's see who's here. Megan's here. Is Jason? Jason's here. Both of them are here. Good. Diggs, would you leave us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Any adjustments to the agenda?
I do not have any.
Okay. Megan, Jason, do you have any?
None from me, Priscilla.
Thank you.
None for me either.
Great, thank you. All right, communication and public comment.
So could I ask just a question while we're here? Because we're using this new system, as far as the audio, Megan, Jason, or anyone else out there, how is the sound?
So, Andy, the sound with you is fantastic, but when I talk, I can hear feedback of my own voice on some other account. But listening to you and Priscilla and Jigs is perfect.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
And you're coming across loud and clear, Megan, as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so we put the update on here because of the things with that were happening with the crossing guards. So with Andy, if you could fill us in on that.
Yeah, so Jim DeBell went down and spoke with Carrie Kennedy, and with my understanding that a staff member is going to be working on and doing that. We are going to compensate that person for that. Unfortunately, and Carrie here, you could correct me if I'm wrong or right. The person who was willing to do that then got sick, and so is out for at least a week or so. Is that?
Yeah, so we actually, just Anna, we have a morning person and then an afternoon person. It's the afternoon person who is now sick. So we do have a substitute for the afternoon now.
But Rockingham, but Central, and I'm very appreciative, Central is going to take that on right now and do that. So we're going to continue to provide the crossing guard ourselves in-house. I had a real nice, Jim and I had a real nice meeting with the town manager, Mr. Pickup, and he was looking at possibly introducing a position into his budget because he needs some traffic awareness also, and so that would put an officer on duty that would be morning and afternoon, fully dedicated to us in that crossing long term, and then we're looking at some ability to get some additional signage or flashing lights, the kind that are solar driven, so that and they come on at certain times to be able to say it. So
the town has also applied for a grant to do a proper study of that intersection as well. Hopefully, I mean, it's going to take a while for that, but it will be, once you have that analysis done, then there'll be money available to hopefully implement the recommendations. So.
yeah, it's going to be, he knows it's a 2-year study or fully complete, but what we're looking to hope to do is push back some of the trees, widen up some of the intersection a little bit there. That was some of his thoughts. Make visibility much better so that as you're approaching, you can see it. There may need to be an extension of the school zone also, because there's where the school is located from Atkinson Street. You can't, your school zone can only be a certain number of spaces, so or feet, and so that's why it becomes challenging to put up the only 20 miles an hour like on Atkinson Street because of the school zone. So I think that's all part of that study, and maybe maybe a stoplight, or, you know, what's the best thing to do.
There used to be a stoplight there, so.
Yeah.
And then just while we're on it, because I think it does have pertinence to the crossing guard, is the church, the old YMCA. They're looking at a demo of around the holiday break here, or at least beginning it. But there may be some crossover and impact when kids are in school. So we're going to have to talk about that. May change up all traffic patterns in that area during that time when they got to bring cranes in and stuff like that. So
Right, because it's right on that corner.
yeah. So
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions out there on that?
And from me, Priscilla.
Okay. Moving on to the COVID programs, that's the changes and things that are there. If you can update us on that.
yeah.
too,
So
Andy.
so we're still doing our surveillance testing. That's the get it wrong, PCR or PRC, I forgot which one.
PCR.
Yeah, PCR. And that is, we do that weekly on Tuesdays. We've got good, it's a voluntary program. We have we have good numbers of students that are signed up for it. It's still how we probably catch the majority of our cases, positive cases, through the surveillance testing. So we do that every Tuesday. We then do our test to stay, and that is specifically for students to be able to attend school. And so if a student is considered a close contact and they are not vaccinated, then they do a 7-day in a row antigen test, which is the rapid test. So they come in, swab their nose, wait 15 minutes. If it's negative, they go to school. If it's positive, that's considered a positive result, and then they have to go home and begin their quarantining for that. And so I think we've seen the numbers going up with that as our cases are going up, more parents are volunteering to get into that program. And so those are the real two big programs we've been doing. We've kind of put on the back burner the send home tests only because we don't get those results. So we have to go fishing for them.
Right.
We're coming on board with the health assistants as we're finding out where our capacity is and whatnot, which will the health assistants will help in being able to do the research on the COVID numbers, or not the COVID numbers, but the vaccinated numbers, because you have to do the research to go in the system and pull that up. I talked with the company that was that the state has hired to provide those nurses assistants.
ATA?
Yeah. So we were not a high priority area. So that's why I found out we're not.
That's nice from one standpoint and not so nice from.
We are now a high priority area because I put an emphasis on the fact that we would be very interested in that. We did get onto that list. And winter sports is starting up. We do have some limitations on access to spectators in the gym, at both here at the middle school, but then at the high school also. So it varies only because of the size of the gym.
And you're sending that out so everybody's well
Yep,
aware.
that's been sent out. And then the last one is the vaccination clinics. So Central finished up their second vaccination clinic here on the 30th of November. So 44 Central kids received their second dose. In total, I think it was maybe about 150 total folks were vaccinated. So because we can't close the clinic to outside people, so they ended up vaccinating up to about 150. They did allow and have some booster shots for faculty or adults. Anything else I'm missing on that?
So we had about 15 other people that were vaccinated between adults, parents that happened to be there, or staff members. And so we had about 165 people vaccinated last Tuesday.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then, so we're on the docket that Saxon's River will have a clinic right after the new year. And then they'll have their second follow-up 30 days or whatever the recommended days after that.
And those parents can also, they'll get them at other places before then, so.
Yeah.
If they've gotten them other places, can they get their second one there?
It sounds like they allowed folks to do that. Originally, they had said no, and because I think they were just getting it up and running. We were like on day 2 for the whole programming with the state, but I don't carry. I mean, obviously, they opened it up for boosters and stuff like that, and I think there were first-time shots also, weren't there?
Yeah, so there were 2 students that missed the first dose and they were able to get the second dose. Their first dose on the second day. And then there were adults that were parents of students that were there that they were giving vaccines, and they put a sign out saying walk-ins welcome. So there were a few people, adults that were in the neighborhood or knew it was a site apparently, that were able to just come in and get vaccinations. So there weren't many, but there were some people that did come in.
So I think it'll come down to availability of doses.
Right,
So.
sounds like it. And anything we can do, because the more that are vaccinated, the more protection we have, no matter who it is. So
Correct.
that's a nice thing that we're able to reach out and be able to do that. Okay. Have you heard anything more about the program that they talked about the 80% in the schools, and then we could apply for grants?
I have not heard anything more about it. I was unable to go to Secretary French's meeting this last week that he holds on a weekly basis. At our superintendent's meeting, it didn't even come up. So other than, I think what's been put out there is about all that's out right now.
Okay. Because they had, on the news, they had said they were going to do put out more by the end of last week, but they may have been delayed as well. So it's just something that we'll keep watching for then. Okay, any questions on any of that?
Hey, Priscilla, I did.
Okay.
I was just curious, Andy, when you said we're coming on board with the health assistants, what does that mean? Is that, because I know our nurses are probably just, 80 miles an hour constantly. Does that mean we've got some coming? Has anybody been hired? I didn't understand what it meant. We're coming on board with health assistants.
Yeah, so just that, getting people to apply, but also there's some shifting resources. So we had some paraprofessionals that currently work for us who wanted to look at a switch, and we really couldn't let them move into that position until we were able to, backfill and bring on someone, to cover their duties. So we had in-house people that were applying for the nurse assistant position, but we didn't have a replacement for them. So we wanted to wait until we got replacements for them in looking at that. So right now I think Carrie's got a candidate that's working, when I say on board, working through our system. The high school, we just moved someone. I believe the middle school has someone who has expressed some interest, but it's also, again, the person who's expressed interest has a current job, and we have to find the replacement for them before we can bring them over. But what we're starting to do is let's say that paraprofessional who's interested, if they've got some open time, whether a student went home, was out that day or might have had a early day, using that person to kind of learn the ropes so that it's not start on day one, you're ready to go day one. So.
No, that's perfect. I was just, because I'm sure test to stay. I see it during my day job. We have parents kind of come in and we'll get business done while they're waiting. And I'm sure it's an absolutely phenomenal program to keep kids in. But I remember last meeting I attended, everyone was talking about how the workload must have just kind of tripled for the nurses and the staff members. But from my end, I just wanted to say that it's making a huge difference just from the parents that we chat with while waiting. So kudos to everybody part of that test to stay program. It really is making a huge difference for working families too. So thank you to everybody for what you guys are doing.
It is definitely labor intensive, but, you know, I think that it's kind of become one of these all hands on deck and everyone's kind of pitching in. So I appreciate you acknowledging that and seeing where we are working. So thank you.
Thank you for your question, Megan. Is there anyone else with a question? Okay, so
Good.
we're going into a budget discussion at this point. Where do we want to start?
Well, let me, do I have sharing ability? Hold this up. That's the leave button. All right. So we can start with the first page, which is the middle school. And so, again, how we have this broken out, I don't know what I'll just give a brief little overview, and then I'll let the principals kind of talk. But how it's broken out, you have the pinkish section is salaries, the purple section is benefits, and then the blue section is the miscellaneous expenses. Over on the side, you'll see a column with FTEs. So that's the number of bodies, full-time body equivalents in each one of those line items. The next line item over, that's under salaries, you'll see there's just some comments of what might make up that line. And then over on the further right where it says grant interventionist, those are bodies, so that number, that 3, represents 3 people who work and they're paid out of title funds. So they're not in the actual built into the budget, but they are off to the side. So. But
And
Susan,
that could be either title or ESSER, is that?
so if there are ESSER people, you would see a number there. So
Okay.
nothing there means it's a 0. But yeah, so.
And there are no grant interventions either.
Nope, so there's that, under title, there's 3. So that's the 3 that you see
Okay.
over on the side. It's just the formatting, it's way away from it, so. But grant interventionist is the title for the whole thing.
There is no plan for an interventionist funded by ESSER for the middle school.
For this year, we're still building out and looking at what our needs are going to be for next year.
Because this is next year's.
Yep, no, I understand that.
Right.
So, but with the ESSER grant, one of the things that's always been challenging is to plan for how many people are we going to need, what are our interventions going to be, and I think we're still trying to figure that out a little bit.
Okay. From last time, the ones, line 511, the third one down, that is down from what it was last time. Can you explain what the difference is there?
I'm going to default to Flora or Sue, if either of you.
Because I don't know if these are matched up with are they matched up as the top line 6, is the top second line 8?
Yep,
Okay,
so for middle school 5-6 regular education, there are 6 teachers. For 7-8, there's 8. And then for the specialists, there are 4 teachers. So, the reason why that's down, I can explain this a little bit. Is we know that there's some potential movement there, and so we're anticipating some savings.
Good way of putting it, thank you. Realized after.
The next line down, just so you guys are aware, AIM is our after-school program that is run. It's funded through 21C, and that's a matching, the Sunset Grant, and so that's the matching fund. That is the in-school suspension. That is a half-time FTE that has been open right now because we try to put the need, in the classroom. Although we are seeing that as our students' social and emotional health continues to be an issue, that we anticipate that that's a position that we will continue to need. Even though we haven't funded it, or been able to fill it right now because we put the person into the classroom. Let's see some other areas that we pulled out.
We've gone up on the technology.
On the 0.6 FTE.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, as we talked with Ricky, we were looking for more, I think the number wasn't really reflecting that person's salary. Is that correct? That is correct. And I think it might be even over this year. So it was under budgeted last year.
What is cash in lieu?
Help me know what line you're on, sorry. Is it what section? Let's start with that.
It's 5295.
Is it blue section?
It's in the gray or?
Oh, okay. Oh.
I'm going to answer
Laura,
that.
yeah, go ahead. I mean,
So that is for, there's a feedback going on. Anybody who's not taking the insurance information, the school insurance and things, if there's an incentive to give to them, if they are not fully using all of the school insurance.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I think from my perspective for tonight, at our next meeting, I'm going to go over the expenses more. But I think as far as the middle school is concerned, I think the staffing up at the top looks okay to me, and I think that's the most critical piece, because the number of people you have is what drives your budget, and so I think I'm okay with that.
yeah,
But on the expenses, I do want to look more closely at some of the expenses, but all in all, it's pretty much level funded for the expenses. And I know another area that we've talked a little bit about at other meetings is, how much we're going to budget for substitutes. That's become a position that has been very difficult to fill this year. And obviously we're not sure if that's going to ease up next year or not. So obviously you have to budget for it. It's a legitimate expense. It's just a question of how much do we want to put aside for that.
Yeah, we met earlier today, the principals and I, and I think you're echoing just what I said. That clearly that came up in other meetings, and we're gonna have to take a look at that and some other things.
So TEs, those match this year, is there any increase or decrease in those?
As far as the number of bodies, Sue, I don't believe so, but I'm going to ask Sue Johnson just to speak to that.
Thank you, Andy, and good evening, everyone. The number of bodies remains static.
That's what it looked like to me. So.
Yeah, me too, but I wanted to ask the question.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah, and I don't think they exactly match up with my last one, so looking at the stuff at the bottom, and the other ones are going to be harder to do. It's going to take me a little bit, I know, to look at them.
Yeah.
And I think
at least we can work from this draft, and we didn't have this until just now, so it'll be, we can work from this draft for the other expenses and stuff. So.
And I think we shared with you FY19 forward expenditures, but we'll get those printed out too. I think that, again, it comes out in that funky, we can't do side by sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, have a packet of that. It's just,
So then jumping over to central, which would be your next pinkish section. I think that's page 6. On the flip outs. And then again, Carrie, I don't know if there's anything you.
Trying to think of any highlights or any other. There were minor changes, obviously being mindful of the budget, but at the same time ensuring we have enough to keep the students, you know, the building operational. I think we went over a few of the details, like making sure we had enough for field trips for the correct number of students. Let's see, I mean, the salaries line item is pretty much negotiated by the CBA, same as the benefits. There were a few line items like the copier that we had discussed the last time that had to be right funded. And that was further down below. Audiology, we're still waiting for some bills from audiology that will be coming out of the monthly expenditures. And really just making sure that there were some line items that had not been populated, you'll see, for like staff development. And so we have a nominal fee. I mean, it's not insignificant, but at the same time, it's not huge impact on the budget, just to ensure that we have equity across all of the SU elementary schools, especially.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, this budget is up 190,000, which is by far the biggest increase. I know we've got the psychological services, which account for 50,000 of that.
Right, and of that is staffing for some students who are, it's unfortunately differently coded for special ed versus a 504 student. And so those are students that either may move into town or are differently coded now because of needing and services. And so part of it is also working with the business office to correctly line item code it. So where it's under paraprofessionals at the top, funding that down below under services. And so we're working on making sure that that is correct. And then there are some things about, unfortunately, like mulch for the playground, which is essential, that was not completely budgeted for every year. It was sort of an every other year. So making sure that we have the proper mulch that meets the VISBIT insurance amount to be code for the playground, some areas like that that had increased.
So that line is
Looking at, yeah.
it is 5611
Okay.
in the blue. It's good.
I see.
Carrie, I know I had to jump off our meeting earlier. The one here I've highlighted on the bottom is do you have two KPIs?
I do. And so that's where we're trying to correctly make sure that they're coded.
You got that other one?
Items, because one was under paraprofessionals and one was under related services. The professional ed.
You got this one here.
Yes.
So up in the blue, 5341. 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down at 40,000.
Yeah.
And then it's here at the bottom, and I just wanted to make sure we just didn't inadvertently have that, because it is red, so we were trying to clean things up if we missed that, or is that actually two bodies in two different places?
Correct. There are two bodies, and we're trying to make sure it's line item change, because originally it was under regular education, under paras for 5121. And so we need to, because it's a contracted service through HCRS, we actually have to code it differently and then move some of the funding there.
Right, so that line item actually up high should be $80,000, and this shouldn't even be here.
Correct.
Got it.
And that's up from 33 or something.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Correct.
I mean, we have to go with what they charge us, unfortunately.
Now, the one thing we
So you're
did.
saying, I'm sorry, James.
Well,
The one at the bottom, you're saying should not be there
The one at the
in
bottom
red,
should actually be up here towards the top.
where the other
Merged.
one is?
Yeah. So that why it caught my eye was because they are separate, but I understand why, because in this current budget, they're in two separate line items, and we've just got to bring it together, so.
Okay.
This, to really reflect it, this line should say 85,000 next to it. And then the line down at the bottom should be zeroed out.
that red.
Yeah,
Yes.
the dollars are the same, and I can show you, Jigs, that,
Yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about.
No, I see it.
And then I think the crossing guard, the discussion there is that an SU expense? Is that, is it a Rockingham expense? Is it is it just central? So I think we need to, it's living right there at the 5,000, but we need to have a discussion of, should it sit at the SU level, but be a charge back to Rockingham, and then split between the middle school and,
It's still Rockingham.
it's still Rockingham, so it's just what budget do you want it to live in?
So, having it one place or the other isn't going to make much difference.
I understand, well, one of the things
Because
we're
it's not going to anyone else but Rockingham.
right, but one of the
If it was
things we're
split,
trying
then
to
it
do
would be
this year,
important.
right, one of the things we're trying to do this year is get line items to reflect what they really truly are. So is it all, because we could all get hit by the Twinkie bus tomorrow, right? And we want it so if the middle school is supposed to support half of it and the central is supposed, then they should both probably split it, as opposed to it all being at central, because it looks like it's central's responsibility then. So, again, that's a
Whereas,
funding, accounting kind of thing, as
Right.
opposed to, so.
Whereas there are a lot of middle school students that coming down from getting out of school and going to that area of the
I guess if you want to know, we
town, so
could,
it's important.
we could,
That's,
yeah. So
yeah,
I think Flora has her hand raised, so I will.
Laura.
Yes, and the crossing guard always, we put it in the miscellaneous because it just goes over Rockingham's budget. So if you go to the miscellaneous tab, you're gonna see that the crossing guard is there.
So it shouldn't be in Carrie's budget?
No, it goes in the miscellaneous because it will go to the bottom line of the group of all the miscellaneous that hit Rockingham's budget, not Carrie's itself. If
Okay.
you go to the miscellaneous tab, you're gonna see that it is there already.
So that's a line item that you could take 5,000 off that 190, so it'd be 180.
The one item that I want to highlight here is, given the student count, the idea of having 3 teachers for, I think it's second grade with 30 students, about that, and I think ideally, we keep, one class at Saxons River and one at Central, so that would reduce the top line there from 10 to 9.
We can look at that
And I think that's something that we should do. The other thing, and we'll get into this more later, but I think it's interesting that when you look over at the grant positions, I know we have heavy needs, but there's five people there under grant, title, and ESSER for Central, which just seems.
So Central is a school in need of improvement,
Okay.
identified by the state, so they get actually additional funding
Okay,
that is not title and is not ESSER.
okay, that's fine, I think that's fine.
So
But I think,
that's the reason why
again, in terms of the manpower or whatever, But anyway, I think obviously that would help our budget if we can go from 10 to 9 on that item. So,
I think we need to also go back and look at the
Right.
enrollment numbers and
Exactly.
just double check those.
I could just add on, we did get 2 new students today, and we have 2 new students potentially starting in January as well. Not a huge increase, but there will be some more students coming in.
And granted, we have to look at what grades they're in and whether there's an impact on that. But right now, I think what we're looking at, Carrie, is the fact that there are 31 listed on the last ones that we were given.
Correct.
And so if we put 2 classes, that's 15 in one and 16 in the other, and that's within our guidelines for pupil enrollment. So I think that's kind of what Jigs and I are looking at as far as.
Sure, that would be for 2nd grade next year.
Right.
Mhm.
Right, because there are 10, 11, and 10, I think, in the 3 classes that you have right now. And for 1st grade, with what they went through this last year and with all the adjustments to school and everything, that's appropriate this year. But we're talking about children that will have been in school hopefully a little more consistently this year, especially as we get further into this year and having had the vaccines and everything. So hopefully, we're looking at children that will have adjusted and learned protocols and learned a lot of that stuff so that when they go to 2nd grade, they can manage in hopefully a little bit more regular classroom. So
One of the things we're
Yeah.
seeing is we're spending a tremendous amount of time just on that management part and the social emotional learning, which our kiddos need. And so therefore, what we're anticipating is students will be further academically behind next year and will not have made the normal growth that we would expect of students. So I anticipate that next year, not only will we continue to need to focus on that social emotional learning, but we're actually going to need to increase our attention to the academic achievement of students and how we're addressing that. So we're going to have to look at the pizza a little different next year and how we allocate resources and where we allocate those resources.
right, and hopefully they'll, with summer programs and everything else, we won't be quite as far behind as we're anticipating. I'm just hoping that we can see that real growth. Our teachers are wonderful, and what they do and the amount of time they put in and what they're giving to these children should have an impact of a positive nature at least, so that we're at least seeing kids going in the right direction at this point. So we'll have to look at that more.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why we're not finalizing, right now,
I know here. So,
but it is something to look at.
all right. Okay, to move on to Saxon River.
Yeah, so everything else though on that line, Carrie, was this, what the staffing levels are at this year, right?
Correct, yes.
All right.
So Saxon's River. So there we see we have 5 classroom teachers, 1 interventionist. That's a school-wide interventionist that's paid out of local.
that's one that we've identified also as not a keeper.
I didn't know.
Well, it just doesn't make sense. You've got the classroom teachers, you've got the interventionalists over here. And why would Saxon River have its own regular ed interventionalist versus any of the other schools? So it just doesn't.
So those positions were well, Laura, I was just going to call on you, Laura. So
Yeah, I think what I'd like to propose is that we provide numbers as far as intervention, just so the board has a better understanding of typical caseloads, because all of our interventionists are 100% maxed out with the number of students that they serve. So I think it would be really helpful for us the next go to get those numbers to the board.
I think the thing that we are seeing is education and teaching has shifted so much that it is less about one classroom teacher with a group of students, and there are kids who need a lot of intervention at different levels at different times. And
Right,
so
but we're stacking, Andy. I mean, it's the, you know, we've got guidance, we've got interventionalists. I think the idea of a classroom teacher teaching 15 kids is still, it's a valid concept. It's something that we have to, we have to set expectations to that. And I think if in a time of ESSER and the pandemic, if we have ESSER funds that can provide additional support, fine. But I think we've got to look at this local budget and what we're asking the taxpayers to pay and set reasonable expectations. And I think that's all I'm saying.
yeah, no, I don't disagree with
And I
you.
think that,
We have to be fiscally responsible.
whether, so anyway, I think we want to just make a star on that one again.
And I think one of the things I was going to propose to all the boards is, as we get, into the new year, to invite board members to spend a day or two shadowing students and really seeing what it's like in the classrooms right now, and see the wonderful things our teachers are doing, but also just to see what the day-to-day is. I think there's value in having that eyes-on examination of what the life of a student is in today's classroom.
We have really missed being able to do that with COVID. I know it's kept us out more than what we did. I know that's one of the policy issues, is to encourage board members to be able to visit. I mean, going in once a month would be wonderful if we could, get there and do that. But even every other month gives at least some idea. And yet we have not been able to be in the schools for a year and a half. So it's
yeah, I'm looking at a program where it's not just a pop in, it's a line you up with a student and spend a day shadowing a student. There's been I've read some stuff on it and how positive it can turn out. So
Keep in mind, in addition to the classroom teachers and the interventionalists that we have here, on top of that, we have special ed teachers and aides.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when I was on the board previously, I did do a tour, and I was shocked to walk into a classroom that had about 12 little kids, and there were 7 adults, okay, standing around in that room. And I think that if any kind of effective reaching of kids, I mean, that's confusing, I think. And I think that I buy into the need to support these little kids. But I also think that we've got to really look at the effectiveness of how many adults we're putting into these classrooms. And again, this is only one part of the budget. The part that we get hit from the SU is another huge component of this budget. So I don't want to come across as unfeeling or anything like that, but I'm just saying, let's get real here, and let's be sure that we're setting expectations, both in terms of our students and our teachers. And I think we are. I hope we are. But this is budget now. This is dollars and cents. And we have to weigh that against the realities of teaching in 2022, 2023. So,
I don't disagree with you, and I think it's been something I've worked on the last 4 years, is to reduce that, because that was a shock to me. I can tell you, like, Saxons River has one special educator for their entire building, and she was carrying some of the highest loads, especially last year. I think that it's important for us to note that while we're talking about budgets, we are also talking about teaching in 2021 in a pandemic that we don't see an end in sight. And it's changed the needs of the students and the approaches that we need to take. And they're in applying a metric that is a pre-pandemic metric to educating students in today's world. It's like apples and bananas. We're not even talking the same shapes of the fruits. And I understand fiscal responsibility.
Well, no, I don't think you do, but anyway,
Okay.
it's important that we make this point. And again, we're fortunate in this particular time frame, I guess, to have the ESSER funds that allows you to evaluate whether a building needs some additional resource. And I know you're going to be doing that. I know you've done it already. And again, I'm talking about the regular ed budget and what we're asking our taxpayers to.
No, I understand that. And again, I look forward to when we can invite you guys in and shadow and really get to see, the buildings and what they're like on a day-to-day basis and the great work our teachers are doing. So I don't know if there's other pieces of this.
I
Again,
have
on the
one question
expenses, I'm gonna-
that we just brought up. Ricky, is this on, if there's no light, it's not on, or it is on? It's on. It's on.
Red light
Okay.
means it's off.
Red light means it's off, okay. Thank you. Just watching it, getting a little nervous. We have one special educator in Saxon's River. How many do we have at Central?
We have 3 technically, but there's one who's out on a leave, so there's 2 right now in person.
There's 3 grade level case managers, and there is 1 program specific.
Mhm.
Again, yes, but
But one is on leave.
no.
No.
So
There's another one on leave.
there are 3 that support the kids in the classroom, and then there's 1 that is there to support students for specific programming. So separate from the day-to-day case management in the classroom. So kids with specific needs above and beyond the direct instruction.
And middle
Which
school?
makes 4.
How many at middle school?
So at the middle school,
We have 4 case managers right now.
yeah, there's supposed to be 6. And we've had 2 resignations.
So we just have
And again,
4
one
left.
of those is program specific for a certain population of students.
And we also had one of our special ed case managers that went from our school to Westminster at the beginning of the school year.
So that leaves you with 4 bodies right now?
4 special education case managers for the school. Yes.
Okay. Because one went to another school.
So there should be
and-
7. If everything was funded and we had all the bodies, there would have been 7 there this year.
That's correct.
And what about paras, like special ed paras?
Off the top of my head,
Okay.
I couldn't quote you the para numbers, but I can get,
You can give us that.
We have 1 at Saxon's River.
Right, that's what we heard. Thank you, Laura, though, for clarifying again. Appreciate that. Okay. I think I've got the numbers. Okay, and I didn't ask you the question, Laura. The numbers there that you have on our budget sheet, that's what you currently have as well.
Yes, that is accurate.
All right, that helps. Thank you.
And a lot of, you'll see in the notes, if you see something that says from Rick, that is Rick Schumann, who is He's come up with those numbers that need to be, I'm just looking at, Saxon's Rivers right here. So those were numbers that came from Rick Schumann.
Okay.
And I went back and looked at expenditures, I kind of spot checked it, and they're not inflated. They're pretty close to what we've been spending.
And Priscilla, just a point of clarification, we currently do not have a librarian. So it is included in this budget because I am hopeful that we will one day have one. But as far as current employees, we do not have a librarian.
Right, and I think all the board members knew that anyway, so we wouldn't have been upset to see that there and not had that, but we do appreciate your making it very apparent to us. Thank you.
There also are regular ed paras.
And those are on here.
Right, but I'm just saying,
Right.
it's additional adults in the building.
And
That's two
again,
of three.
yes, and so some of them, if there's a regular ed para, it's because there's a student who might have specific needs that are identified through a plan outside of an IEP. And so therefore, the school is responsible to provide those services to ensure the student has equal access.
Yes, if I may, we do not have any regular ed paras that are just building paras. They are all assigned to students with 504 needs.
Okay.
That's the
Is
same
that
for
the-
Central.
It's Central and Saxon River, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And at the middle school, we have no regular ed paras at all. And at this moment, we are, I believe we have 4, maybe 5 special education para positions open that we have not been able to fill this year at all.
And how many do you have open?
4 or 5.
4
4
or
or
5 at the middle school.
Plus
And
3
how is that-
special education case managers.
How is that working?
For staff.
We are doing everything we can to meet the needs of students. And, you know,
Yeah,
sometimes it's, you know, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul at times, but I think that's why you heard from Stacey Alexander, how she's, you know, down assisting and helping and you know, doing things. So
Well, I looked at that. I mean, you're down 3 special educators, and then have 2 out. So you're technically down 5. Of course, she's going to have to fill in. I mean, at most, she can only fill in like one of those. So you're still down 4, which brings us to the discussion of, do we really need a full 4 or do we need a partial number of those?
I think she had mentioned at the SU meeting that she's looking to reallocate her resources, so there will not be as many in this building next year specifically, so she's looking to reallocate them. We originally,
Theoretically here,
pardon me?
that are theoretically here. You know, the
Correct.
7 that are theoretically here are actually 4.
Well,
now.
and some of it has to come down with specific programming that you
Right.
provide for students, so we may look at how we provide that programming, so that may look different. And then additionally, there was a bubble that kind of went through here, and those kids are now in 8th grade and will be moving on, so some of that, so there will be a higher caseload going into the high school next year, so that's where reallocating some of those pieces.
And whether they need, and what their needs are at that point, because the needs will change based on the differences in programming and the differences in other stuff as well,
Right.
and ways to satisfy their needs. So that's for you to figure out. Thank goodness, not me. I'm looking at the page 12. I may have asked this before, but can you specifically tell me what the long-term bonds are?
Hang on, let me get to that. That is
It's the Central Saxon.
yep, the miscellaneous. So that's this one that's up on the
Yeah.
right now. So
The big one is right here.
I think so.
And then a lesser extent, it was Saxons River and Central. We still have some debt service to complete on that.
What's the, Laura, do you know the, how many more years we have on both of those, loans, the bonds?
Yes, they are to, year, 32. So
I'm
there's
sorry,
four different ones.
Sorry, you're saying there's 4 different bonds?
Yes, so the first one in 2012. That one, the last payment is in 2032.
And how much does that for?
That one is 132,200. That's the monthly payment for it.
That's the big one.
And then the other one, which is 2032, that is another 97,200. Those both says 2012. I'm going by the documents I found. And then we do have some that it was done, I guess, in 2007. And
That was Saxons River and Central.
that one was on another 30,000. Those the 30,000 will be done on 2027. And then there was another one done in 2006. That one is done in 2026, and that is 175,000. That's monthly payment.
So could you break out, because in here you only have 2 lines?
Yeah, because overall, when we pay it, it just comes out from those 2 lines. One is for the interest, and the other one is for the loan itself, because all of them is the same financial institution. So when we get the invoice, it has all the information together, and we just do a one payment. It's not separate.
The Monday is 2 weeks from now.
Okay, thank you.
Safe trip. Okay.
And then the last one that was done in 2014, that one is done in 2025, November 2025.
What was that one?
What was that one?
Do you know what that was for?
Because that's 5, right?
Yeah, that's 5. Laura, do you know what that last one was for that you mentioned?
That one is all the last information, I guess, that is gathered together.
So we don't know what that loan, because you originally said there were 4 loans, and now you're saying there's 5?
No, it's 4. What I have is 4 documents. This is a series that's the loan schedule. I'm sorry.
Okay. So there is no 2014, 2025.
Okay, no 2014 one?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
But I could share all the documents if you guys need me to, because we do use them for the auditors as well, so we can see the status of each of the districts.
So the 2012 ones were both for the middle school?
The 2012 is in the middle school. And then the 2007 or 2006, one of those is for Saxons River and one is for Central.
Okay, maybe don't know which.
I mean, I'm
I'm just going to write.
I'm thinking the higher number one is the 2006 is Saxons River, just because they had a large addition put on, 2-story addition, but I could be completely wrong.
That's okay. I just lumped them together and put an indication.
Yep.
I just didn't want to have marked them wrong, that's all.
Right.
Okay. But at least that's coming up this is 2022 coming up. At least it's looking
Yeah.
like we're towards the end of that, which is good.
And then the page 13, or what's up on the screen, is just a comparison of looking at these are total lines of where things are. So these are budgeted amounts for 21, 22, and 23.
For the middle school, we've got air conditioning rental on there still. Are we looking at renting still? I thought we were going to do something about that.
That should come off.
So that. Maybe doing something with that would be helpful.
Well, that number though, if you go back and look, that miscellaneous budget is everything here that's is in blue.
Okay.
So I'd have to add all those up to tell you.
Tell you what the difference is.
Yeah, what
Okay.
those differences
Just
are.
something to look at.
Yep.
Okay.
Again, I think one of the reasons why Central was up was a lot of the things that are mentioned there, the fire range hood and stuff, inspections and stuff like that were actually, they didn't budget for them last year, so some of that is in there, but it is up 100,000 as Jake's pointed out.
So that's a lot. Taxes are right there. Okay.
So again,
This
yeah.
gives
but-
us something
yeah.
to look at and compare. And are there any other questions from Megan or Jason that we need to address now?
Priscilla, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Megan.
Excuse me, and it's just a general question. Because I have no memories from last year apparently. But does the public get a chance to comment at any point on this budget before it gets presented to them as voters? Is there a place for our constituents to read this and offer any kind of feedback before we finalize it before then?
Basically at our meetings, I think.
Oh, okay.
You know, if they've got a concern and they want to come in and ask us questions or, you know, and attend and look at this, we do.
Do they get a
present-
chance to look at the documents too that we have, or is it like kind of they'd have to sit through the meeting and watch on screen during the replay?
Basically have to come and
Well,
be at the meetings.
I think we can put a proposed budget up on our website. I mean, it's just a couple of clicks to put it up there for people to look at. And I have seen that at other districts, so, I mean, it's a fair question, Megan, and if, you know, if we're talking transparency and whatnot, is to put it out there for people to see and.
I mean, I don't know what the other board members think. That's just my thoughts is, you know, after last year's meeting, I really don't ever want to be accused of trying to sneak a budget through without anybody having more than ample chances to kind of say, oh, I love this, or I don't support this. Not that we'll be flooded with input on the budget, as exciting as it is, but there's hope, right? And we can at least all say when we're all sitting up there that it's been up, even the proposed budget's been available for folks to give us input that we would gladly take. I would gladly take input from our voters and our taxpayers through the whole process. But by all means, Priscilla, that's just a suggestion that we can think about. If no one else is comfortable, I understand.
I hear you, and I think from one standpoint, it's a very good idea, but I think we need to get to the point where we've got at least a fairly solid feeling about the budget. And the problem with that is that we probably won't have that till at least, I'm hoping, early January this year, not having 3 meetings a week right at that last little crucial thing, and like sitting there the night before, we had to have it into the town office and getting it there. So we are, I think, ahead of what was last year. I think there's a lot more transparency that we're getting on this budget, which is really pleasing me. I'm feeling like if I ask a question, you know, I'm at least being heard, and hopefully we can get an answer on that. it's usually the proposed one, and then we present it, and the taxpayers have a right then to say, okay, there's the budget, we don't like it. And they either vote for it or they vote it down. It was, last year, we did not have figures. We did not have the revenue side. So far, we don't have the real revenue side for us yet here either. I know there was a comment at the bottom of the sheet that we were given the other day on revenue, that we're given at the SU, that they would have the finals once they completed the audit. I'm not quite sure why we're waiting for the audit, because those figures should have been available in the business office in August, because it's based on last year's expenses and last year's revenue. So I would think that those should have been available, but that's where I'm coming from on it. So I don't know however other people feel. But yeah, let's discuss definitely, Megan, at the next meeting. We'll put that on the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you so much for at least considering it. And if it's a terrible idea, I'll eat my words. I'm not married to anything at this point. Something tells me that I would like to be able to say, hey, it's been available for comment before it was finalized. I would like to be able to say that at the end of the whole exercise.
And I think that's a very good point. And I'm glad that you raised it. Thank you. Jason, do you have anything also? Or Megan, did you have anything more? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm absolutely good. Thank you, Priscilla.
Okay, Jason, do you have anything?
No, just this is the nature of the beast. Is people, if they want to get involved, they need to get involved, and we can't force it on them to come to the meetings, but it would be nice if more people would.
That's right, because that way we can listen to them, we know how they feel. Thank you. I think for tonight, we'll stop with the budget, we'll have it, put some of it on for unfinished business for next time too. Maybe not quite as lengthy, but specific questions next time that we can address. We do have executive session on there if needed, and I think we need a short executive session to discuss negotiations. And so let's do director's comments first. Yes.
Just before you join that, if board members have specific questions about things, if we could get those ahead of time so that we could have some answers for, like, I'll use second grade. Why are we proposing this to the second grade? We can give a very detailed answer as opposed to trying to do it on the fly, type of thing. So that would be helpful for us.
So if you could get me the questions, hopefully by, let's say, at least, let's give them time, maybe the Thursday before our next meeting, if that's workable for you guys. That way I could get them in there Friday morning, and they would have Friday and Monday to address those and come to the board ready to answer our questions. Does that make sense?
That works for me.
Let's start with you,
Thank you.
Megan, director's comments then. Oh, unless,
Thank you.
Okay.
I was just saying thank you.
Megan, director's comments?
I'm just going to keep it brief and just say thank you to everybody gathered here this evening. This is a lot, and as much as I'm learning and I understand how much I don't understand, I just appreciate the tone and the cooperation between everybody this go around. It makes it so much easier to understand and really get the nuances and try to dig in deep when everybody just plays nice and is patient with my millions of questions. So thank you everybody for all your hard work.
Jason?
Yeah, just going forwards, it'll be nice to see us finally break through this fog of the COVID days, and the educators that we have in our district can get back on course more than they have been able to. And I think right now our kids are still suffering as a whole. I think all of our staff is suffering as a whole, and hopefully we can start getting through this. And that's all.
Thank you, Jason. Yes, I think we all went into this year thinking, oh, we're going to have a normal year. And as a result, when we've had the kind of year that we're having so far, it is absolutely devastating for people when they watch it. They want it so much to be normal that tempers get short. We forget to be kind to each other at all times, and we need some of that back. Our staff, our teachers, our administration, they're working unbelievable hours and very, very hard to make it good for our students. And we just need to really know and let them know how much we do appreciate them. I'm pleased to see the 44 young people, that students, the young ones that are vaccinated, and hopefully we can turn a corner and just get there and get back to some normal in the next year. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or person involved in the, or the board at a substantial disadvantage, and invite our Andy for that, our superintendent. And Ricky, do we need you as well to man anything?
Technically, no.
Okay, all right, Megan?
Yes.
Okay, Jason?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go into executive session.